In Pursuit of Truth, this is your host, Sir Patrick Mack. We are back. The news is moving fast. I'm doing my best to keep up with it all.
When you try your best, but you don't succeed.
I didn't let go. I didn't let go. We got more Q posts. Yep. 2826 is where I last left you, travelers of the truth trail. 30 minutes after the hour of 10. We get this post right here, and this is from the episode from NCIS, New Orleans. This was from the other day. Big thanks to Shady, Groove, and In the Matrix, who are doing great things, not just on Twitter, but over on YouTube, too. They cover a lot of the Q posts, and they explain a lot of things for Anons. They've got a great show. I think it's roughly daily over there on YouTube. And so a couple of nice guys offering up a great vibe and a lot of help for the Anon, so thanks to those guys. Also, Sold Out Anon, who actually posted this video here. And thanks for making it a 45-second video. Very nice. So thanks to all three of you Patriots who are doing great work. Now, I actually want to break this down a little bit, but I can't play it for you. So we're just going to kind of check out some screenshots. I would like for you to check it out before you hear anything that I have to say. That way you don't feel like I'm planting these thoughts in your head. You can see if it vibes with you or not. But as a professional entertainer, I can give you hopefully a different insight into how this was laid out as opposed to just what the subject matter is. Now, we're talking about Q in this scene. First of all, let's get to the scene. This is actually the previous scene, and you'll see the transition right here. And then it transitions into, let me see if I can get it right to the first shot here. There. Okay. Now, the first thing I want to point out here, I don't know this show, NCIS New Orleans, so everything I'm giving you is just based on body language, scene setting, and how it's lit and all those kinds of things. We have these two characters here. I'm assuming they know each other. And automatically, regardless of where, how their relation is to each other, in the scene and in the shot, this man in the foreground is already kind of taking a submissive pose. He's sort of looking down, and this man is leaning in. He's standing up, and although it's kind of an awkward hand gesture there, it gives him sort of this credibility, as in, I'm leaning in, I want to listen to you, but I'm still standing up, which means that I am in the dominant position. Also, then we have the light kind of over his head and over his shoulder, which gives him some credibility. He's backlit. Okay, so it opens up. They're talking about QAnon, the Q post from whatever. And the first thing that this guy says is something about, well, QAnon is just a right-wing marketing scheme. And so that's the first thing that you hear about QAnon in this mention. And now you're going to see this guy on the right kind of go, yeah, I know, but he says he is now, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't real. Now, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but it was something like that. But look at the body language there. The low slumped over shoulders, the hand position. It's a very submissive kind of pose, and that's very, on purpose. And now you see him backlit too, which is not always usual for TV, if that makes any sense. But he says that doesn't mean he wasn't real. It doesn't say he wasn't legit. He says, but that doesn't mean he wasn't real. Now, you're going to see this look of exhaustion from this guy right here. But before he does, notice that backlighting is slightly dimmer now. And you're going to watch him just bow his head in this sort of, oh my gosh, I'm just done with this idiot, right? And then he throws out something like, but Pizzagate. It's something like that. Now, again, I'm paraphrasing, okay? So it doesn't explain anything, just says, but Pizzagate, as if the word Pizzagate negates the whole argument, okay? And now this lady walks in here, and she's already in a grumpy mood, and she's ready to shut him up. What are you talking about? Da-da-da-da. And then this guy over here, and again, look how he's leaned into this guy. He says, well, we're talking about the Q post, and he's saying that he's legit, but I'm saying that it's not, that it's just a conspiracy. And she kind of cuts him off. Now, the reason why that's important is because he offers up both sides in one sentence, but finishes it with his last word. And then she cuts him off and basically tells him, literally, I think she tells him to shut up. And then she says something about the next person who speaks about Area 51 or the grassy knoll, I'm going to punch, which is incredibly democratic. As soon as you hear something you don't like, lash out physically. So already, this is a real likable character right here. She wants her coffee. Now, QAnon doesn't mention anything about the Area 51 or the grassy knoll. That's kind of older conspiracy stuff. But you can see the conflation there. And I just wanted to point that out. And I wanted to point that out with the setting. And I'm not sure about this show, but this character seems like a real charmer here because she actually kind of physically kind of goes after this dude over what really is nothing. But there you go. There's your Q conversation. And I just wanted to break that down from the way that I looked at it. But I think the blocking of this scene kind of shows, I don't know this character. Maybe he's brilliant in the show, but it kind of clowns him about this whole Q thing. And that's really important. If you think that they're leaving that out when they consider this, when they're shooting it, I would beg to differ. Q says when their attempts to silence through print fail, they must now include in TV and video. And we get the YouTube link right here. Why put so much attention into a so-called conspiracy? Why is it critically important for them to change your opinion or prevent you from opening your mind? Q. The YouTube link takes you to this right here, The Opposition with Jordan Klepper. And this was an episode that aired on Comedy Central. This was posted back on March 20th. It was right around this time. And I've actually done quite a thorough analysis on this very episode. So do me a favor, watch this 6 minute and 10 video, and then go check out my video here posted back on the 22nd. And it's entitled, Why is this video important? I will link it down below for you. It's from the 22nd, entitled, Why is this video important? And do me a favor, check it out. Only 1,934 people have seen it so far, but 93 people liked it. Ben Collins and Sue Woe did not. All right, but I thought it was important back then. I broke down the kind of the staging and the lighting and the whole thing behind this Comedy Central episode. This was, I believe, the first time that we had ever heard about QAnon on mainstream media. And of course, they introduced it on Comedy Central. So please do me a favor, check out this breakdown. Do it after you watch this so you can get your own thoughts in your head first. That way I'm not supplanting anything. But you can see if it vibes with you. But I do feel it's very important. And that's why I chose to break not only this down, but I think the breakdown of this scene too, so that you can really see how Hollywood systematically does it. It's very important to make sure that they get out in front of this narrative. Now, Q says, why put so much attention into a so-called conspiracy? Because look, this is how Hollywood and the unhinged left has always shaped their narrative together. It's Operation Mockingbird, right? This is their arm right here. This is how they reach the people. They know so many millions of people are going to watch NCIS, and maybe so many of them have never heard of Q. So, by a few simple suggestions, in less than a 45-second span, they can be given an impression on what QAnon is. Now, the difference is that back then, during this, we see sort of a clowning. Like I said, it debuted on Comedy Central, so immediately you think QAnon must be a joke, right? And as this piece transitions, it gets a little darker. They only show you that there's kind of a danger to all this conspiracy. Now, the difference between that and this NCIS episode, as I've just shown, is that this man has this level of exhaustion about it, and she's so frustrated, she's ready to punch him about it. You see the difference? There's a true panic, and they're expressing it here. Why is it critically important for them to change your opinion or prevent you from opening your mind? Because the second you do that, you're going to see all the things that I not only just that I pointed out, but you're going to see all the suggestion here, and you're no longer going to be suggestive. And so that frustrates them because you're not going to buy their products, you're not going to watch their shows, and you're not going to buy their crap. Let's move on to 28:27. 35 minutes after the hour of 10, we get taken back to this February post, way back, a couple days ago, to 2791. Wherein Anon had mentioned about DNI Dan Coates, forced soon, source Trump friend Chris Ruddy. And we walked through that article, and Q had just simply said, interesting that this leaked already. Yeah, it is an interesting leak. Now, I'm not so sure if it's true or not. I have a feeling that was kind of the point, right? We get a couple Twitter links right here. First one is to the Habes, Maggie Haberman. A month ago, POTUS told New York Times in Oval Office that he was happy with Coates. Yeah, she sat down with an interview. She was incredibly disrespectful to him. They talked all about it. And POTUS hasn't really said anything about Dan Coates. Now, I'm not really sure if this is going to go down. I'm not sure if it's going to go down before, during, or after this summit in Hanoi, Vietnam. We'll have to see. The next one is from Senator Susan Collins. DNI Dan Coates is a good friend, former Senate colleague, and leader of integrity who has always served our country well. We are fortunate to have a person of his ability and candor to lead our intelligence community. Okay, that's great. So we got a couple of supporters. Number one, our deep state knucklehead writer, Maggie Haberman. She's their cleanup hitter, right, for the New York Times. She's the one that when they need to tee up a story, she'll hook it up. Now, why are they coming out in support of Dan Coates all of a sudden talking about this? Because I haven't seen much in the mainstream news. As a matter of fact, the only thing we covered was the Newsmax article yesterday. I believe it was in yesterday's video talking about it. And of course, Q was sort of tongue-in-cheek saying, interesting that this leaked already. It looks to me like this was a leak to catch the leakers. Do you think nobody is paying attention to the drops? Yeah, exactly. We know exactly who's following Q. And Maggie, who's been given a chance already to hop off that proverbial train, has decided to enter the tunnel anyway. She's on the train, she's made her decision, and it looks like this confirms. So I have a feeling that this Dan Coates leak, I'm not so sure how much teeth there is to the story, so I don't want to go way into him yet, because until it actually happens, we're not going to know. Now, it could be true, and it may very well happen, but I think what's more important is that we were catching a couple of leakers, and it just goes right back to what really is starting to enter the mainstream narrative, is that we have leakers that have always been leaking to our mainstream media. That's really crucial when establishing this Christopher Steele dossier story, right? Let's move on to 28:28, 38 minutes after the hour 10. We get Donald Trump status. And a quote here, stories are written that have absolutely no basis in fact. Hashtag facts matter Q. And here's the status right here. The press has never been more dishonest than it is today. Stories are written that have absolutely no basis in fact. The writers don't even call asking for verification. They are totally out of control. Sadly, I kept many of them in business. In 6 years, they all go bust. Stories are written that have absolutely no basis in fact. Hashtag facts matter. Yeah, look, I don't know if it's so important at this juncture right now whether or not Mr. Coates gets let go or not. That's President Trump's prerogative, right? But I think the point is that people are paying attention to the Q drops, because this hasn't really been coming out other than that Newsmax article that I pointed out to. So how are they getting this information? And Q, I think, of course, has already shown us very, very clearly that so much of this was just simply being leaked. So they're shaping these stories to get out in front of narratives, and that's what they have to do. So if you toss them something fake, they are also going to have to react to that. And that very well may be the case with this Mr. Coates story. I would also rememberize you of the time where Q had alluded to the fact that Rod Rosenstein might be getting fired on a Friday, I think it was. And that didn't exactly go down like that, did it? But Representative Miss Sheila Jackson, if you're nasty, she came out and mentioned that she knew about it. Well, how would she have known about it if she wasn't paying attention to the Q drops? Look, the world is watching. 28:29, 42 minutes after the hour 10. And Anon makes this nice graphic here with Maggie the Habes. She's on the train. She's on the train. And you can see the post here. This one's a little harder to read, but 2660 says, handler, conductor, smoking can be bad for your health. Read the warning label, deboard train, and walk away. Once in the tunnel, there's no going back. And I still think this is alluding to the story of Atlas Shrugged, and we don't have time to go into that, but it's sort of a metaphor of a train that's entering a tunnel, and it's dangerous for this train to enter this tunnel because if it breaks down in the tunnel, everyone will die, and I don't want to go way into the story, but that's the story. So you got to either get out the other end or deal with it, and Hames has decided to stay on the train, which means she's taking a risk. She is going to stay a deep state knucklehead. said. And she's been given the choice, I guess. I'm not really exactly sure what she needed to do. Maybe she had a story that she could have published and didn't. It's hard to really know the specifics of that, but the Habes is not on our team. Anon says, didn't see Dan Coates in the MSN these last couple days, meaning there is no other logical reason for them to post outside of being high to Q drops. P.S. Did Haberman stay on the train? And Q confirmed. Now, mind you, people like the Habes are probably burning through phone after phone right now trying to get all their info. Their 4 a.m. talking points aren't as easy to get as they used to be. So people like the Habes got to, they kind of got to communicate in code as well on their own Twitter. So some of their tweets are interesting to follow, but I'm sure the Habes is feeling the heat. And speaking of heat, 28:30, 49 minutes after the hour of 10, we talk about Ronald Reagan. He says, when you can't make them see the light, make them feel the heat. I love that quote, always have. And there's the quote right there. And here's a link to Donald Trump's status, who also posted that. How about that post from the POTUS and a post from Q with the same thing? It's almost like they're connected. Well, indeed, and it looks like the Habes is feeling the heat. Let's move on to 28:31. 4 minutes after the hour of 11, we get this article from the Amazon Post. Trump reportedly growing tired of Coates. Job on the line. And we get this Twitter link right here to Anon93 on Twitter. I'll be posting some Q drops here soon. Seems like another busy day. Found this on the front page of our local newspaper. And you can see that they've taken this and put it next to this post from the other day on the February 18th, Dan Coates out. Yeah, so this has been kind of going around. So like I said, I just keep thinking that this mumbling is for some particular reason. Like I said, I think Q was being a little cheeky about it. What a coincidence. Q. Let's move on to the next post. 28:32, 9 minutes after the hour of 11. We are the news now. That's right, boys and girls. We sure are. So put on a clean shirt and maybe comb the hair a little bit. 28:33, 15 minutes after the hour of 11. We get this Twitter link right here. Right here. John Solomon III dossier, the family secret Bruce Orr told Rod Rosenstein about Russia case. Who would have thought this deep into the Russia collusion probe we'd be learning about yet another dossier connected to Hillary Clinton? And as it turns out, it was sort of a family secret. By his own account, senior Department of Justice official Bruce Orr played an essential and unorthodox role carrying politically tainted allegations of Donald Trump Russia collusion to the FBI during the 2016 election. Okay, so we already knew this, right? But this is what we're getting that's new, and it's coming from testimony. And now we learn from testimony that is still being kept secret from the public that Orr admitted to Congress last year that he also took Russia information that his wife Nellie assembled against Trump on a computer drive and delivered that to the FBI in 2016. Remember, Nellie Orr can speak Russian. A revelation that has raised fresh concerns in Congress about a possible conflict of interest. Nellie Orr worked for Fusion GPS and for a time worked on the same Clinton finance Russia research project as Steele, according to the testimony. Okay, so we sort of already knew this, but what we're finding is that Nellie had her own little dossier compiled herself, and that is why Bruce Orr is working so hard to protect his lovely wife, Nellie. DOJ ethics rules forbid department officials from working in cases where a spouse has a financial interest, a prohibition that Bruce Orr said he knew about when he forwarded his wife's evidence to the FBI. The way Orr described it, his wife's research was like an additional dossier assembled from Fusion GPS research to augment what Steele was separately providing the FBI. Yeah, I think we're going to start finding a lot of these new ones coming out, and we'll realize that FISA was simply the cover-up event to make it look legit. Now let me take you down here. Steele's dossier was the opening salvo, a document sent to the State Department by Clinton proteges Cody Shearer and Sidney Blumenthal was another. A thumb drive given by Clinton campaign lawyer Michael Sussman to FBI General Counsel James Baker was a third. Simpson's thumb drive given to Bruce Orr was a fourth, and Nellie Orr's thumb drive would be a fifth. At least three of those work products, those from Steele, Shearer, Blumenthal, and Nellie Orr, resemble what many people might consider consider a dossier. Orr said his wife generally knew what the FBI might be investigating because she had joined her husband for a breakfast with Steele on July 30th, 2016, right before Steele, a former MI6 agent, began working as an informer on the FBI's Trump probe. And you can kind of sum it up right here. In a matter of weeks, in the shadows of a presidential election, Orr took derogatory information about Trump from Steele, a contractor at Fusion GPS, just like his wife, a thumb drive from Simpson, his wife's boss, and then another thumb drive from his wife, and delivered all of it to the FBI. And Orr admitted his conduct was extremely unusual. All right, so we've talked about this, and it's just like clockwork. I was just saying, I think it was yesterday, that this FISA D-class is coming out just bite by bite as it gets declassed. Remember, so much of this is being used in grand jury information, but as it gets declassed, it's going to come in the form of two things: John Solomon articles, which, like we just covered, and Sarah Carter scarticles. And here we've got our scarticle right here, 28:34, 59 minutes after the hour of 1 p.m. And she tweets this over here on Twitter. Breaking, read here how former FBI lawyer James Baker originally believed Hillary Clinton should be charged.
It's funny because it's true.
Former FBI General Counsel James Baker originally believed Hillary Clinton's mishandling of highly classified information was alarming and appalling. At the time, he believed her use of a private server to send the classified emails was sufficient enough to secure an indictment to possibly charge her for violations under the Espionage Act for mishandling sensitive government documents. Listen to that again. At the time, he believed her use of a private server to send the classified emails was sufficient enough to secure an indictment to possibly charge her for violations under the Espionage Act. Okay. Baker held on to that belief until shortly before his former boss, FBI Director James Nobody's Homie Comey, made the public announcement not to charge Clinton on July 5th, 2017. He said he changed his position only after arguing and discussing the situation over a period of time with senior colleagues at the Bureau, to include Comey. Comey, however, had already written an early draft in May, exonerating Clinton and changing grossly negligent, a legal term for mishandling classified information, to extremely careless, according to the drafts obtained by the Senate Judiciary Committee in 2017. And I'll bet we have Aunt Loretta Lynch to thank for that. Okay, so there are some excerpts here from this interview with Representative John Radcliffe, and I just want to parse a little bit here. My original belief, after having conducted the investigation and towards the end of it, then sitting down and reading a binder of her material, said Bakers, I thought that it was alarming, appalling, whatever words I said, he said, and argued with others about why they thought she shouldn't be charged. The lawmakers and committee investigators then questioned Baker as to what legal standard he based his original opinion on. Okay, so we got a little bit of it right here. Ratcliffe says, all right, are you a reasonable prosecutor? Baker responds, not anymore. I'm not a prosecutor anymore. Then there is a quick exchange of questions and answers. Ratcliffe pivots back to Baker's decision to change his mind regarding Clinton. You were persuaded and stated as a basis that ultimately you were persuaded there was a lack of evidence establishing knowledge or criminal intent, correct? Baker says simply yes. Ratcliffe, when were you persuaded? Baker, sorry, pretty late in the process because we were arguing about it. I think up until the end. Ratcliffe says, yeah, so Jim Comey had reached the opposite conclusion as early as, or I guess as late as, May the 2nd of 2017, as reflected in the memo that he created, correct? Baker says, I know there's been a lot of public discussion about that. This way I experienced that interaction and other interactions with Jim Comey, is he would throw things out like that to get people to start talking and thinking about it and test his conclusion against others and get them to push back. And so it was, I believe it was in that process that I read these emails and we had these discussions and arguments. Okay, so this is interesting, and this comes more from the testimony of Baker. We just talked about this the other day, how the FISA class was going to probably likely start with more Baker testimony and more Bruce Orr testimony, and here we see it right here through Scarticles and John Solomon. But this is how we knew it was coming, and we're glad it did. But also we know that between James Baker, Andrew McCabe, Rod Rosenstein, and James Comey, one or more of them must be lying. Now, I originally thought that James Baker would probably do more to protect, but it looks like he is perfectly happy to maybe not perfectly happy, but I should say it looks like he is spilling. And I'm not so sure he's spilling everything, but it seems to be contradicting what's likely going to be in the books of Andrew McCabe and James Comey. And that's going to create some panic. 28:35, 7 minutes after the hour, 2 p.m. And Anon posts this. It's a tweet from Donald J. Trump. And the tweet is from February 20th. We have just built this powerful wall in New Mexico, completed on January 30th, 2019, 47 days ahead of schedule. Many miles more now under construction. Hashtag finish the wall. And there you can see it right there. And look at that. We've got a little video. And right in the corner of that video, what do you see? That's right, the Army Corps of Engineers Red Castle logo. Now, if you want to check out the video, you can check it out over on the POTUS' Twitter. It's a 22-second video. New DJT. Q says, Red Castle, where have you seen that before? Well, you've known all along, Anons, because you're so freaking brilliant. And this is where you knew. 28:36, 12 minutes after the hour of 2 p.m. And we take back to this graphic again here, showing you exactly how you knew and when you knew. The Red Castle being the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, located in Green Castle. And there they are right there in front of their, I guess that's their little gate right there, which is very cool. We build stuff for national defense. Beautiful video, the Anon says. Q says, what an amazing coincidence indeed. But Anons knew all along. 28:37. 21 minutes after the hour of 2 p.m., we get this link right here. To Representative Adam Schiff on Twitter, Dan Coates has been doing an outstanding job as Director of National Intelligence. Oh, it's good that you brought that up because we weren't talking about it until you guys started talking about it. He speaks truth to power and gives policymakers the best intelligence possible. He is loyal to the country and Constitution, and that is as it should be. And this was in response to a tweet from Shane Harris. Trump said his intelligence director is not loyal. Now U.S. officials think the president will fire him. Okay, so now they're pushing this narrative out. Nobody said anything about firing, but all of a sudden everyone's coming to Dan Coates' defense. Very interesting stuff. Now, I want to point out that Adam Schiff had mentioned truth to power. We've heard that before a few times, haven't we? Look at all these Q posts here. The last one we heard was 2209, truth to power. 1853, do you believe in coincidences? Truth to power. Q just dropped the other day. I don't seem to find it here, but it was in regards to Snowden. Truth to power. So what does this truth to power mean? Not really sure. Here's another one at Snowden, truth to power. That's not the same one. It was a more recent one, but for some reason it's not on this. But you can see what's up. So this seems to be some sort of message. Now, I'm not really sure here if Adam Schiff is essentially trying to give Dan Coates some sort of message, whether not to talk, whether or not they're going to protect him or not. But Dan Coates' job seems to be on the line. Now, let's go back to the Q post here. Q says, we really started something, didn't we? Well, now we know he's a bad apple. Right. I thought this story was to basically get the cockroaches to see who is going to go scurrying. And indeed, they have. Now we have this, what looks to be hashtag fly Coates fly hashtag. Now, I've got some older posts drawn up here for you to show you that we've seen this before. And of course, it doesn't seem to be a hashtag in this case. In this case, it was with Rod Rosenstein here. Now, these are just some of them that I've seen. There's probably some more. I seem to remember there were a lot of them. But I just drew some of these up for you here. Fly Sid fly. Fly Ross fly. Would that be Linda Rothschild? Fly Al fly. Again, fly Sid fly. Goodbye Al. There were all these that we were seeing that were in between these. And I guess they're not really hashtags, but we see in between these what we used to call pound signs, right? But let me turn your attention to this one in particular, 2108, which I always thought was really kind of telling here. And this was in regards to a Q post from February 14th. 2018, showing Q's relation to military intelligence, signal intelligence, okay? And then this is where we saw fly, rod, row, fly. Now, I have a feeling that this has to do with showing us that they are maybe under some sort of satellite surveillance, because it actually kind of looks like a satellite, and that all these different people were being probably watched or listened in on. Desperate people do desperate things. It is during this period of time that surveillance pays off. When does a bird sing? Now, we've debated when does a bird sing to no end. And of course, I think one of the most logical ones is after a storm, right? But I also think it has to do with this big bird satellite, and that they are listening in on all these people, and very well may be now that we have someone else's feet to the fire. And we see that to be the case now with Dan Coates. Fly, Coates, fly. So those are just some ideas I've been kicking around. Let's move on to 2838, 35 minutes after the hour at 2 p.m. We get this CNN link right here. Justice Department preparing for Mueller report as early as next week. Attorney General Bill Barr is preparing to announce as early as next week the completion of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's Russia investigation, with plans for Barr to submit to Congress soon after a summary of Mueller's confidential report, according to people familiar with the plans. Okay, well, we already kind of knew this, but here's the little wrench here that I want to mention. But with President Donald Trump soon to travel overseas for a summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, justice officials are mindful of not interfering with the White House's diplomatic efforts, which could impact the timing. All right, so I don't know if they're really doing that for the sake of the president, but we do know this, is that oftentimes when big stuff has to drop, the president has to make his way overseas, and likely because that's where he is safest, if you know what I mean. And we've long suspected that when the FISA D class comes, that POTUS may have to be safely on Air Force One, because we know how the deep state likes to panic. Hugh says right after Barr installed. What a coincidence. News moving fast. It is indeed. I'm still getting Q posts as we're talking. But you can see the bacony cheesy goodness is coming out real soon. I don't know if that's anything big is going to drop, if the Mueller report is going to end up dropping while President Trump is overseas, or if they're going to try and use it as an excuse to stall. It remains to be seen, but I wouldn't be surprised if it plays a big part in the timing. Let's move on to 2839, 15 minutes after the hour, 4 p.m. Mueller must deliver report to DOJ prior to OIG releasing next installment. Remember, you saw our calendar, right? Mueller's basically got to show that this bus is finished, right? Like I've said all along, they got to raise Trump's hand in victory. Then the OIG report can come, and we actually might get some steam on there, or at least more steam than we would have without it being the other way around. Q says you will understand why in the coming weeks. Yeah, I have a feeling it's going to come in a scarticle. Let's move to 2840, 54 minutes after the hour of 8 p.m. Anon posts this tweet from Sebastian Gorka, and this is from his site, SebastianGorka.com. Ann Coulter is now a never Trump conservative. And that's basically just the same title right there. That's funny. Q says, Mitt Romney. Wire transfers are a convenient way of transferring money.
Hey, that's my money.
Okay, so this is interesting. I don't have any exact connections as of yet, but Q seems to be implying that Ann Coulter might be on the take. In order to garner some support, toss a little coin my way via wire transfer, huh? Okay, like I said, I don't have anything specifically, but I want to rememberize you of an incident back in 2016. Mitt Romney had a hacker, and this dude went to jail. He hacked his tax records, allegedly, and he was threatening, he wanted a $1 million Bitcoin ransom. Now, this guy, like I said, he went to jail, and as he should. But I do think it's interesting that this guy would go through so much trouble with Mitt Romney. He must have thought he had something in order to get $1 million ransom to even bother to try, right? So just throwing that out there. Now, as far as Ann Coulter goes, her support for Mitt Romney has flip-flopped, like it's flip-flopped for a lot of people. She tends to flip-flop a lot. We get a little bit more information here in 2841, 55 minutes after the hour of 8. Mitt Romney. Wire transfers are a convenient way of transferring money. Q adds on here with this Twitter link. It says happy hunting, and it takes us to Ann Coulter's tweet from November 2012. I feel so sorry for Mitt Romney, but sorrier for the country that will never have him as president. Wow, so it looks like she was on the take a while back, and maybe she needed a little bit more coin to re-up those dues on that loyalty. Don't really know, but I have a feeling some hunting will probably turn out some interesting connections. I haven't found anything exact as of yet, but like I said, I wonder if it would have anything to do with those tax records that Mitt Romney likely would have wanted to protect. Let's move on to 2842, 44 minutes after the hour of 9 p.m. We get another couple Twitter statuses from Ann Coulter. And it takes you back to the 2012 tweet. I feel so sorry for Mitt Romney, but sorrier for the country that will never have him as a president. And then we get this from February of 2018. Poor Utah Republicans. If only they had a carpet-bagging, flip-flopping, Trump-bashing, clueless twit of a Senate candidate. Oh, wait. Okay, well, it seems like a little bit of a flip-flop to me. Hypocrite, history of flip-flopping. Yeah, it's a big part why I've never really enjoyed her. She's always seemed very lucid, a very intelligent person, but I've just never been a big fan, and this was actually long before Trump, and that's, of course, just me. But this is why I've never really understood where she stands. She seems conservative, but at the same time, I'm not so sure she's really, really MAGA. What made her flop this time? Well, I imagine maybe she thought it was a good chance. Maybe if she thought if people were desperate enough, she might be able to score some coin. I don't know. I haven't been able to see these wire transfers, so it would be hard for me to really understand the motivation just yet. But that would seem to make sense to me. People like her love to stay relevant. Wire transfers are an effective way at swaying opinions. Yeah, exactly. My opinion is for sale. I'll be happy to go ahead, but you've got to up your dues. Shills come in many forms. Well, that's what a shill does, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that they have that much principle in the matter. They just want the highest bidder. Race to build a base, followers to build worth, to draw funds. Common these days? Precisely. Mitt Romney needs a lot of steam if he wants to go against the Trump machine. And Mitt Romney is smart enough to know that he's up against a very, very big machine. So if he wants to do this, he's going to have to open up those pocketbooks. And to get a name like Ann Coulter supporting you, it's probably going to cost you. Let's move on to 2843. 57 minutes after the hour of 9 p.m., Q is responding to an Anon on 8chan who says John Solomon on Hannity, and Q responds, but you knew that already. Hence why Adam Schiff, the Southern District of New York, and Maxine Waters are attempting to keep the insurance scheme ongoing post Mueller. Yeah, they're basically threatening anybody else who might be able to keep that bus from driving off the cliff, right? Fear. It's all it is. Adam Schiff has no right to open up another investigation. Now, he's going to try as hard as he might. But we all know it's all going down in the Southern District of New York. Think El Chapo, think Nexium, all of that. Eric Schneiderman. The fun begins directly after. We'll make the Super Bowl look like a puppy show. I like puppies. All right, well, look, before I let you go, I want to turn you on to this. An Anon posted this on 8chan, and I thought this was really interesting, especially in relation to what we talked about with Ann Coulter. This is a 2016 tweet from WikiLeaks. Clinton's Pied Piper strategy, use media context to promote Trump, has backfired spectacularly, a PDF of our leak. And I'm not sure if you can see the text there, but it says, our goals and strategy. Our hope is that the goal of a potential HRC campaign in the DNC would be one in the same, to make whomever the Republicans nominate unpalatable to a majority of the electorate. We have outlined 3 strategies to obtain our goal. Number 1, force all Republican candidates to lock themselves into extreme conservative positions that will hurt them in a general election. Number 2, undermine any credibility/trust Republican presidential candidates have to make inroads to our coalition or independence. And 3, muddy the waters on any potential attack lodged against HRC. Operationalizing the strategy. Pied Piper candidates. There are 2 ways to approach the strategies mentioned above. The first is to use the field as a whole to inflict damage on itself, similar to what happened to Mitt Romney in 2012. The variety of candidates is a positive here, and many of the lesser known can serve as a cudgel to move the more established candidates further to the right. In this scenario, we don't want to marginalize the more extreme candidates, but make them more Pied Piper candidates who actually represent the mainstream of the Republican Party. Pied Piper candidates include, but aren't limited to, Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, and Ben Carson. We need to be elevating the Pied Piper candidates so that they are leaders of the pack and tell the press to take them seriously. Okay, so this is interesting stuff, right? Essentially making all the really crazy loony knuckleheads look like they're mainstream so that everyone looks like they're loony knuckleheads. And of course, you remember how they tried to pin the deplorable tag on us, right? So really cool stuff. Thanks to the Anon who sent that, but I thought that would be really, really interesting in relation to what we were talking about. On that note too, I'd like to point out, thanks to many of you Anons who have been emailing me about this. I haven't gotten to this yet, and I will try to address this. Many of you have mentioned that some of these graphics that Q posts on these posts, and I'm just using this as an example. I don't know if this exactly connects to something because I haven't checked, but you'll see these long stringers and whatnot. A lot of WikiLeaks emails are getting connected to some of these numbers if you search these. So this is very, very cool, and what I'd like to ask of you, if you've got some that you'd like to share, please share me the graphics or the proofs, if you will, and then I will try and share them here on the show. Please do not send me a video of somebody talking about it. I would love the actual graphics themselves, showing the actual proofs, and then we'll talk about it on the show too. But I wanted to go ahead and point out that I did know about that. I think it's really cool. And I honestly haven't gotten to check it out yet. Seems very similar to how these trip codes were being searchable in the Google Books too. So lots of great connections. But there you go for now. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. And if you didn't like this video, you don't have to do any of that. It's all good. I'll see you later. Thanks to all of you who've been liking and sharing my videos. I appreciate you guys so much. If you're new to my channel, welcome to you. Please keep in mind that from time to time, you will get unclicked, unnotified, and unsubscribed, and nowadays it's going to be more and more difficult to search me, so just keep trying, please. And if you'll do me a favor and join me on one of my other platforms, I've got my Gab, my BitChute, my Brighteon.com, and I'm over here at Twitter at IPOT1776. That's at IPOT1776. All those links are down below. My email link is down below. My P.O. box is down below if you'd like to mail something. And if you'd like to support the channel, my Patreon link is down below too. All those links are down below. And I've also got the link to this video down below too. Please check it out. In Pursuit of Truth presents, and this was from March 22nd. Why is this video important? This will also be linked down below. All of it linked down below. Did I mention that it'll be linked down below? I think it did. All right, great. This is Sir Patrick Mack, and until next time, stay cool.